Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. I'm your host, Real Joe Quinn. Nah, I didn't forget my name. Listen. I'm like, all right, doing this main podcast in the short amount of time. Sorry, I gotta get used to it. Gotta get back in the swing. Gave y'all a podcast late last week. Now I'm giving y'all another one early this week. Hope everybody out there is doing great. Obviously ready for football season. College football has gotten started. We'll talk more about that later in the program. The NFL will kick off again a week from Thursday. Kansas City and Baltimore. So we're almost there. We're just very close to the best time in sports and in terms of the calendar year, in my opinion. A lot to talk about as we near the NFL season on this podcast. Again, as always, you can find my podcast anywhere where podcasts are available: Spotify, iHeart, Apple, iTunes, etc. So definitely like, share, subscribe, dislike, disagree, agree, whatever. It doesn't, I take disagreements just the same as I take agreements. It does not matter. If you dislike, explain why you dislike it. All feedback is certainly welcome. We're going to begin with the second half of my NFL preview. Last week we did the AFC. Now we're on to the NFC, which is not as top heavy as the AFC, not as talented as the AFC, but there's still some teams out there who, of course, have Super Bowl aspirations. Still some talented teams, especially at the top. But certainly, to me, a lot more. I'm not gonna say wide open, but nowhere near as strong as the AFC. We're gonna begin with the teams to beat, and there's not a team to beat. There are two teams to beat, in my opinion. You have, and again, I definitely forgot to change this. You have the San Francisco 49ers along with the Detroit Lions. First, in regards to the 49ers, of course, last year coming off a just brutal Super Bowl loss, overtime loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. They are top to bottom again, year in and year out, one of the most talented teams in the league. Warren Sharp's rankings as far as units, they rank number 2 in terms of their front seven, number 1 in terms of wide receiver tight end unit, number 1 as far as their running back core, number 2 as far as the head coach. They have the second best Super Bowl odds. But here's the thing: since 2000, only the New England Patriots have lost the Super Bowl and bounced back and won the Super Bowl the next year. Of course, remember they lost that Super Bowl to the Eagles in 2017 and defeated the Rams a year later in 2018. It's very rare. It rarely happens. It's rarely happened in the history of the sport where a team loses the Super Bowl and wins it and comes back and wins the Super Bowl. More times than not, a team either struggles to make the playoffs or doesn't even make the playoffs at all. So that's, the Super Bowl hangover, especially after a loss, is real. Listen, the 49ers, this is a just critical year for them, to say the least. The talent is undeniable, but Trent Williams, one of the best players in football, is not getting any younger, and he is the anchor of the offensive line of an offensive line. If so many knocks at the door, you only get so many knocks at the door. The Sacramento Kings, back in the day, learned this the hard way when they had the Lakers on the ropes and couldn't finish the job. Though, Tim Donaghy had a little bit to do with that. You only get so many knocks. Like Boston Celtics were able to cash in this year. I really believe that Boston wouldn't have won it this year, that I think they would have been done, to be honest with you. I just, certain years, when it's your time, you have to take advantage of it. You only going to get so many knocks at the door, especially in the NFL, where things can change so quickly. Brock Purdy, look, very good player. He's a very good player. You want to call him above average quarterback and that slightly above average quarterback? Okay. Okay. Warren Sharp had him ranked, and I'm looking on here now. Sharp had him ranked amongst the quarterbacks. Check this out. And I agree with all these rankings. A couple of, they had Dak way too high for my liking. But Sharp has him 10th. So Warren Sharp says he's a top 10 quarterback. Yeah. I wouldn't put him at, like, I don't think he's as good as Jordan Love myself. So I wouldn't put, he had Jordan Love 14th. I wouldn't put him ahead of Jordan Love. I wouldn't have had Dak number 7. So, look, he's somewhere in that 10 to 12 range. He's somewhere in that range. Certainly. He's somewhere in that range. Very good player, of course, needs a lot of talent around him to be successful. But again, this is a team that's absolutely running out of time. They're running out of time. They're running out of chances. You can only knock on that door so many years. They've lived in the NFC Championship. They've been to a couple Super Bowls. They need to go out. They need to they need to win it. That's the funniest story. They need to go out there and win the Super Bowl. And if they can't win it this year, then I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen if they can't win it this year. So they are the team to beat. They are the co-team to beat. You look at their division. Division will be fine. I don't think the division is that strong outside of the Rams. To be honest with you, I don't trust Seattle at all. The Rams are very good, and we'll talk more about them later. But Arizona, I don't know. I gotta see Arizona. I gotta see Kyler Murray. People claim that he's putting down the video games and focus on football. I'll believe it. I'll see it when I believe it. Or maybe he's pulled back from the video games in comparisons to to what he was what he was doing previously. But we'll see. We'll see with Arizona. They could be one of those teams that maybe surprises people and becomes not a contender, but becomes a playoff team. Maybe a factor possibly in that division behind San Francisco. But San Francisco is clearly the team to beat in that division. You'll have a major story on your hands if San Francisco does not win that division. But again, I'm I don't know about San Francisco. I'm not as confident as in San Francisco as you should be, considering their talent level, their coaching. They have everything that you would want in a team. But again, I just think that they've been knocking on the door for so many. They've been knocking on the door for so many years that eventually, again, you wonder. Was last year their best chance? Again, they face a Kansas City team that again had Patrick Mahomes, but again that Kansas City team last year was not a strong all around team. They had excellent defense. Patrick Mahomes, that Kansas City team was not that was a year to get Kansas City. That was an absolute a year to beat Kansas City, and they still couldn't do it. So I just wonder the psychological standpoint of losing the game as the way, especially the way they lost it. There's it's going to be an interesting year to watch them navigate this year. Now again, the NFC is not. It's just the NFC is just not very strong. So they can get 7 to 8 wins easily. They probably will only lose maybe one game in that division. It's just not the NFC down top to bottom. It's just not very good. But again, I would keep my eye on San Francisco as far as they could take a small step back. And if you told me in January, San Francisco was 11-6 and a wild card team and got eliminated in the first round, would I be shocked? No, I wouldn't. I would not be surprised. At that point, I would say, hey, the window is not all the way closed, but now it's time to kind of regroup. And it might take them a couple of years to get back. But if you're telling me if you're telling me that they could be a first round exit and that they could be a first round exit, it would not surprise me. It just wouldn't. Because again, you only get so many knocks at the door when you're trying to win a Super Bowl. As far as the co-team to beat, the Detroit Lions, Detroit, looking at Warren Sharp's rankings, number 1 offensive line, number 2 running game, number 5 front seven. That's a big one. The number 5 front seven is big. They drafted to improve the secondary, so the secondary should be better. The division's horrible. They'll probably end up 5-1 in the division. Their win total was 10.5. They have the 4th best Super Bowl odds. They could easily be 4-0 out of the gate with their schedule. Listen, I like Detroit a lot. Detroit has been building something the past couple of years. You got to give Dan Campbell a lot of credit. I know the ankle biting, how weird that was a couple of years ago. But right now, Dan Campbell, again, minus the decision he made against, the decision he made with some of the 2-point conversions and going for it and being overly aggressive, he'll get, if you're a Detroit fan, hopefully he'll get better with his in-game strategies. He has no choice but to get better if they're going to compete and win a Super Bowl. But they are absolutely headed in the right direction. They should have beaten San Francisco last year in the AFC Championship, the Conference Championship. We've seen teams, come close to the Conference Championships before, come up small and rebound to get to the Super Bowl. So that's kind of like a natural step of progression. They took a major step last year. They will not sneak up on anybody this year by any stretch of the imagination. But the bottom line is, they have a talented, well-rounded team. Again, their most visible weakness was the secondary, but they've addressed that with the draft. They've shown that they could develop players at a high level over the past couple of years. Again, when I look at that team, and I look at how I want to gauge a team, obviously it begins with the head coach, quarterback, and what can you do at the point of attack. Their front seven and the offensive line are right there with anybody in the league, top 5, top 10, at worst top 10, and they can win anywhere. This team is built to win anywhere. Again, the schedule could get difficult depending on a couple teams. Like, if Jacksonville and Indianapolis improve, that schedule looks a lot tougher than from the beginning. So but for the most part, they're going to get their division is horrible. Outside of Green Bay, there's nobody in the division that moves you. If you're a Detroit fan, that will even put any remote, fear into you outside of Green Bay. They will be 5-1 in that division. They might even go 6-0. Though I'm high on Green Bay, so I think that they're probably more likely going to split that season series. But Chicago not ready. Minnesota will take a major step back. I mean, they don't even have a quarterback right now. And even J.J. McCarthy wouldn't have gotten hurt. They still wouldn't have a quarterback as he's was a rookie thrown into the fire. So Detroit's in a great spot. Again, I like their team a lot, like what they've done, and they will be amongst the teams in the AFC certainly that can get to the Super Bowl. And to me, they are based on what happened in the AFC Championship game with San Francisco. They're right there with San Francisco. They match up well with San Francisco. They're not afraid of San Francisco. They have a quarterback that's been to a Super Bowl in Jared Goff. Warren Sharp was extremely high on Goff as a quarterback. He had Goff. Look at the quarterback rankings here. He has Goff, the 12th best quarterback. Yeah, I wouldn't put Goff ahead of Jordan Love. I think Love is talented, very talented. But I mean, you can make a case. It's not that far off. So, but Goff is a proven commodity as a quarterback, and they have the perfect amount of talent around him. Like, you have a great running game. You have the best offensive line in football. You have they play to their strength. Like they play great complementary football with the opposite line and with their defense and opposite line. They're great. So, they can get to you with the pass rush. Aiden Hutchinson has developed into one of the best young pass rushers in the league. And again, that secondary should be improved coming off last year. And I expect big things out of Detroit. Biggest challenger to these two teams easily is the Green Bay Packers. I don't want to hear about Dallas. I don't want to hear about Philly. I don't want to hear about Atlanta. Dallas, the Green Bay Packers absolutely are the biggest challengers. Green Bay is loaded with young talent. Now, again, their talent doesn't jump off the board with the big names, but as Dallas learned the hard way, they have a number of young pieces on offense at the receiving core. They still have a very good offensive line. Matt LaFleur, of course, we know is one of the top coaches in the league. Is a top five coach. Has won a lot of games early in his career. The 11th best Super Bowl odds, which is kind of low, but makes sense. But I would have them a little bit higher, but it kind of makes sense. Outside of the secondary, they really have no visible weaknesses. Offensive line, defensive line, quarterback. When you look across the board, Green Bay is talented. They develop players. As we know, Aaron Rodgers absolutely did them a favor with speeding up the rebuilding process. Jordan Love absolutely is going to be a star. He got the record. He got the big time contract over the summer. So you have that done. You have that taken care of. And they have so much young talent on the receiving core, and still have a very good running game. Though I know still have a very good running game. Green Bay's gonna be a problem. Green Bay. If you tell me that Green Bay is in the Super Bowl, not surprised in the least bit surprised whatsoever. Green Bay last year was one of the more impressive teams in the playoffs up until they got to San Francisco. Again, they should have beaten like Detroit. They should have beaten San Francisco last year. They threw that game away. Love made mistakes. They got tight, inexperienced, came out on the road, which is understandable. They took a step, but they took a major step in getting to the divisional round. What they did to Dallas was a big time win. That no one expected them. I expected the game to be competitive, but no one saw that coming. I mean, no one saw that ass whooping coming, what they put on Dallas. And it told you all you needed to know about the Dallas Cowboys if you already didn't know, but it told you where Dallas is headed for the future from that standpoint. But Green Bay is next, without question. San Francisco, once San Francisco takes a step back, Green Bay absolutely is next in line in terms of the team of the now and the present and possibly definitely the future. What they have at the quarterback spot position and Matt LaFleur, who we know can coach quarterbacks. So I expect big things out of Green Bay. And I certainly won't be done with them during this. I won't be done with them as I will discuss them later on in this podcast. A team that can go either way. This is my team that can miss the playoffs or possibly even end up in the Super Bowl. Kind of like you just don't know. It's not Dallas Cowboys. I have no Dallas Cowboys. I'm sorry. I wouldn't even right now. I don't think Dallas is a playoff team. I'm going to say that right now. I don't think Dallas is going to make the playoffs. And if they do, it'll be on some 10-7, 9-8. They'll squeeze in and be a non-factor. I'm very much down on Dallas. I hated their offseason. They already have some injuries. Jerry Jones is Jerry Jones. I have zero faith in Dallas whatsoever. This is not even me hating on them as a Commander fan. Dallas. I'm sorry, Dallas does nothing for me right now. Just watching them and seeing what type of offseason that they had. Philadelphia Eagles, I understand they have number 2 wide receiver Warren in terms of Warren Sharp's rankings. Number 2 wide receiver tight end core. Number 5 in terms of running backs. Number 4 offensive line. Here's where it gets dicey. Number 13 in terms of their front 7. Number 17 as far as their secondary, and number 11 as far as their head coach. And number 11, a head coach might be even kind, considering how they finished the season. I can't get what transpired the last, say, 6 weeks, 6 weeks out of my head. That embarrassing home loss. Well, no, it wasn't home. It was actually in Tampa. That embarrassing loss to Tampa Bay. I just can't get that out of my mind. Nick Sirianni probably should have been fired. You replace coordinators. To me, what transpired, I just think when you have a situation like the Philadelphia Eagles had, that it was probably time to move on from the head coach and go in a different direction. They chose to bring Sirianni back. I think that was a mistake. And again, I'm not one who's big on changing coaches out of like emotion or what have you off one bad season. But what transpired last season, the culture, it was just a toxic locker room from the front office from the top on down, and I can't get that out of my mind. I don't. Again, Philadelphia's defense to me, I just don't see it from a defensive standpoint. Yeah, will they be able to put some points on the board? Sure, they should be able to score, but defensively, I don't think offensively they can compensate for that defense. That defense looked horrible at the end of last season. Everybody was putting points on their defense. Everybody was going up and down the field on their defense. I don't see that changing. Like I said, they come in the Eagles defensive line, they were known for their pressure. That was a strength. The Eagles were one of the best point of attack teams on both sides of the ball. It's not the case anymore. No one has any fear of that front seven. That secondary is a joke. It's an absolute joke right now. That secondary is an absolute joke. Until I see it, I won't believe it until I see it. Now, a good thing they got going for them, division is not strong by any stretch of imagination. Okay, it's not bad. It'll be a little bit better, but it's not strong. And they have the ninth easiest schedule in football. Four out of their last 5 games are at home, so they have those couple things going for them. Again, I'm really interested to watch. I expect the defense to struggle. Jalen Hurts. Do we get MVP? Do we get MVP runner-up Jalen Hurts from a couple years ago, or do we get a guy who looked lost for the majority of last season? Like, who is Jalen Hurts as a quarterback? Now, you're paying him like an absolute superstar franchise quarterback. We understand that. And that contract even kicks in that much more this year. But who is he? I don't know. I think Jalen Hurts is talented, but I don't know if Jalen Hurts is a guy who can make other people around him better. From what I've seen last year, I would say no. But again, this would be the biggest year of Jalen Hurts' career. Again, you're paying him a ton of money, and which absolutely you had to, coming off the year when they went to the Super Bowl and easily could have won the Super Bowl against Kansas City a couple years ago. But this is a crossroads year for the Philadelphia franchise. You're going to find out about your quarterback. You're going to find out about your head coach. So this is a year where they have to again. Like what would constitute as a successful season for Philadelphia? If Philadelphia gets to the Super Bowl, then you have to bring Sirianni back. Certainly, you get to the Super Bowl and say you lost to Kansas City or lost to somebody or Cincinnati, whatever. You have to get back. You have to bring them back. But I think anything less to me than Super Bowl appearance, I don't see. Yeah. I don't see either. Jalen Hurts will be back, but I don't see Sirianni coming back. So I think this probably will be Sirianni's last year. If they get off to a slow start somehow, I could see Sirianni done by October, to be honest with you, by Halloween. Like, you talk about being on the hot seat. He is on the hottest of hot seats from a head coach standpoint. Like I said, he could have been easily they could have got rid of him easily. And they could have made a strong case that they could have got rid of him easily. Most overrated team, I think the Falcons are vastly overrated. Their win total is at 9.5, which is ridiculous. I understand it. I get the division's not that strong. I get it. But Kirk Cousins does not raise anybody's level. There's already talk about Michael Penix taking over for him before the season's out, or even if Cousins struggles to begin, that talk has already been starting. So that's not a good sign. Now, 13th best Super Bowl odds, which is ridiculous to me. They do have the easiest schedule. Atlanta, their defense was so bad. You talk about the Eagle defense. The Atlanta defense is one of the worst defenses in the league last year. They have some nice weapons offensively. I know Pitts is one of the better young tight ends in the league. Very good offensive line. They can run the ball. again, Kirk Cousins is Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is a guy who needs a ton of talent around him. Very small room for error. Offensive line and defensively, your defense gives up a lot of points. Kirk Cousins is not going to be able to compensate for that. Again, Kirk Cousins. Listen, give Kirk Cousins all the credit in the world for all the money that he's made, for getting the absolute most more out of his talent. The guy was a 4th round pick, so I'm not knocking the hustle at all for Kirk Cousins. He is, God bless his agent. Kirk gets his money and has gotten his money, has produced and put up very good numbers, but he's not that guy. We know Kirk Cousins is not that dude, never will be that dude, and that's fine. So again, this signing Kirk Cousins to me made zero sense. I said it at the time. And it just, again, Atlanta is kind of one of these teams where I don't know what they're doing. You sign Kirk Cousins and you draft the quarterback with Michael Penix Jr. with an injury history that he had. I wouldn't have drafted him as well. But so I just wonder what's going on down in Atlanta in general. But that team, a lot of people like that team. I'm not one of them. Atlanta does not have a history of giving, like they have not earned it for me to give them the benefit of the doubt as a franchise. They just haven't. And I could see Atlanta. Yeah, could they win 9 games? Possibly, but I could, if you told me Atlanta was 6-11, would not surprise me. Or 7-9 or 7-10, it wouldn't surprise me in the least bit if they had a losing record. Most dangerous team, the Rams. I think the Rams are going to have another very good year. Last year they were 10-7. They have an 8.5 projected win total. Okay, I can see that. That's fine. I have no problem with that. 4 teams best Super Bowl odds. Now they lost. You lose to Aaron Donald, one of the greatest players of all time, defensive, offense, or whatever. That's a big loss. But they have some young pieces on that defense. But most importantly, they have Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. They still have Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, a ton of talent offensively with the receivers. This is a very good team. I feel like they're going to be San Francisco's biggest challenger in that division. I think they're going to make the playoffs. And again, if the Rams are playing in the NFC, I don't think the Rams can get to the Super Bowl. I'm not going to go that far. If they're playing in the NFC Championship, would I be shocked? No. And remember, what they do have is they have a pedigree for winning. They don't, like the Rams don't do losing seasons. They just don't. They're kind of like the Steelers from that standpoint. They're not going to have McVay's had one losing season in his entire career. So they've done nothing but win. I like this team a lot. They're a mentally tough team. They are a physical team. They have some holes. I mean, they have some holes. The pass rush isn't great. Pass rush isn't great. The defense is not what it used to be. Offensively, they're not as explosive as they once were, but they're solid all around. And again, McVay is a tremendous coach. Gets the most out of that team. I like there were a lot of teams last year's playoffs that could have easily won. They were one of them. Like they probably should have beat Detroit in that game. So they lost 24-23 in Detroit, a game that could have went either way. So, if they could play with Detroit, they could play with anybody in the NFC. It's just that simple. On any given day, they could beat anybody in that conference. Period. On any given Sunday. So that team is very good. I think they could be a dangerous team that if you're San Francisco, if you're Detroit, if you're Green Bay, that you really wouldn't want to see them in the first round of playoffs or possibly maybe or even in a divisional, but especially in that wild card weekend. You want to avoid wild card weekend to not play the Rams. So overall in the NFC, I will take Detroit and Green Bay in the conference championship. Those are the two teams I have the most confidence in, to be honest with you. I'll take Green Bay to beat Detroit in a classic, and we will get a classic throwback AFL type Super Bowl, AFL, NFL Super Bowl, Green Bay versus Kansas City, and Kansas City will three-peat. So Kansas City will do something that the San Francisco 49ers of the late 80s, early 90s couldn't do. They will do something that the Cowboys and Patriots couldn't do, and that's three-peat. again, Kansas City, to me, you have the ultimate. Their coach quarterback combination is so by far ahead of everybody else. It is like insanely ahead of everybody else. It really is. It's on par with where Belichick and Brady were in terms of the coach quarterback, in terms of their coach quarterback duo. This is a historic coach quarterback duo. When we talk about Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and they will offensively, they will be better this year with the receivers. Their defense may not be on the same level that it was last year, but it's still going to be, I think, a top 10 defense, a legit top 10, maybe even top 5 defense. They're not going. They have young talent, so they're not going to take a major drop off from that standpoint. And they, again, no team in the NFL knows how to win at the level that Kansas City does. And I think that they are. I think they're in everybody's head outside Cincinnati, and I think even in the NFC, they're in everybody's head as far as they're going to make plays. They're going to make the big play at the big time. Look at those. Look at the last 2 Super Bowls they've won. Like, those were losable games for most teams. Most teams lose those games against Philadelphia and against San Francisco. They found a way to win those games. So they know this is a team that knows how to win any type of game. They can play any type of style. They can win any type of game, and that says a lot about that team. And they still have some of the best talent. Again, they still have some of the best talent. When you talk about Mahomes, when you talk about Chris Jones, the cornerbacks. I know Kelsey is slipping, but Kelsey is still great. They still have some of the best talent in the league, and I think that they will make history and be the first team in NFL history to win 3 straight Super Bowls. So, have Green Bay, Detroit in the conference championship, and I have Kansas City repeating once again with Patrick Mahomes getting that close to being considered possibly the greatest quarterback of all time. He's already, to me, number 2 behind Brady. He wins a 3. He three-peats. I'm not putting him ahead of Brady, but he will be on track to be better than Brady before it's all said. Now, that would be, 4 Super Bowls at the age of 28. Or at the age of 28, 29. Put that in perspective. Swings and misses. TMZ swings and misses. I know this is I'm late with this, but I just can't. I couldn't help myself. I could not help myself when this happened. So last Thursday, right? I'm getting ready to watch the DNC, and first of all, went to the gym. I knew Kamala. No, did I call it Kamala? I'm sorry. Kamala. I knew Kamala Harris wasn't going to be on till late, 10:30, 11 o'clock. Went to the gym roughly 7 o'clock, 8-ish, what have you. Texting back and forth with some people's family who were going to watch DNC. Everybody's excited. Get a text that Beyonce, somehow I get a text about Beyonce performing. I text, my people's back. I don't, that would be a mistake. If you're Harris, if you're the Harris campaign, you don't want Beyonce outshining you on your night. This is your night. This is Kamala Harris's night. You want to be the biggest star, have center stage. So, kind of go back and forth, not argumentatively or debate wise, but kind of send some more texts. Get a text from my niece saying that he is performing. I know, all due respect to my niece, I know how millennials are. They could be easily gotten with the fake news. So I had to do my own research, and lo and behold, went on Twitter or X, whatever the fuck, and saw that TMZ had confirmed it, that reported that Beyonce was going to indeed perform. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I guess she is performing. The night goes by, and there was no Beyonce. And not only was there no Beyonce, she never was scheduled to perform. And not only was she never scheduled to perform, she wasn't even in Chicago for the DNC. The Hollywood Reporter spoke to a Beyonce rep who says she wasn't performing. This is despite. This is the funny part. This is despite multiple sources saying Queen Bee Queen Bey would be the big surprise performer. Immediately, if you hear that surprise, there's no surprise performer in Beyonce. You can't put those two words or phrases in the same sentence. There's nothing surprising about. You can't have a surprise performer. Beyonce is not going to be a surprise performer. It's just in today's age, it's impossible, especially at that there were 22 million people watching DNC. With all the social media, everything is just impossible. There was no way that was not going to get out. If Beyonce indeed was going to perform, that wouldn't have gotten out. It's too many people talk. It just wasn't going to happen. So the Hollywood Reporter out reports TMZ. TMZ comes up looking insane. I mean, insane for Miss. This is one of the most I've seen. Listen, it happens to everybody. As far as especially in 2024, with misreporting or misses, these things happen all the time. You can't miss Beyonce. You like to have. This is one of the worst misses I've ever seen a news organization have. This is one. I'm trying to think. This is one of the worst one I've seen in recent memory. Easily, like you can't. Somebody was. I'm sure. I don't think anybody got fired. But this is one of these things where I wouldn't be surprised if somebody got fired. That's how bad it was. And I'm not saying somebody deserved to be fired, but I'm telling you, this is bad. This was bad and it made all. And listen, it made when you step back and look at it, it made all the sense in the world for her not to perform. Like we're talking about one of the biggest artists in the world. It makes no sense to have Beyonce perform on a Thursday, to perform on your night if you're Kamala Harris. Like that would have been, like I said, I told my people strategically that just would be smart. Like we would be talking about Beyonce's. You would be splitting up the talk would be half the talk would be on Beyonce's performance. About 20% of the talk or 30% of the talk would be about the performance rather than Kamala's speech. And you want that to be 100%. So, when you look back on it, you say, yeah. You say to yourself, yes, it makes all the sense in the world that she didn't perform. Like, yeah, it kind of like it would have been shocking if she did perform. So, again, TMZ, which has had some misses, Lil Wayne, basically on his deathbed, like back in 2009, I want to say, maybe not, maybe 2011, 2012. I mean, again, everybody has misses. Every news organization has misses, or newspaper. Everybody over the course of history, it just happens. It's going to happen at least once. But this is a miss that I haven't in recent memory. This is one of the biggest misses that I've ever seen, and it's one that frankly is just inexcusable if you are TMZ. Like before this, I trusted TMZ for the most part to get things right. Like TMZ has been, for the most part, a credible organization as far as, they had Kobe Bryant. Like I didn't believe that, by the way. And that, again, you talk about a miss, that was, all the, RIP to Kobe Bryant, but that was a home run. Like they had that Kobe Bryant, they had that down cold. Before anybody had that, they were on that. So like more times than not, they do hit home runs and do get it right. But this one, as good as the Kobe Bryant one was, this was horrible. This was the complete opposite versus the home run it was when they first reported Kobe Bryant tragically passing away, along with along with Gigi and the 7 other victims who died that afternoon. This you can't miss this one. You just can't if you're a reputable news organization. So it was in the best interest that she didn't perform, but just one of the more embarrassing moments in the history of TMZ. I'm sure Harvey Levin still is pissed off about that and will be pissed off probably for months to come behind that. Over the week, Aaron Judge has just been absolutely just hasn't been human this year. He is playing. He is putting up numbers that you know are just that would have you questioning. Again, I'm not even gonna do that about steroids, but he's just been insane this year. He's top 50 home runs for the third time in his career. 32 years old, already has over 300 home runs. He is easily the best power hitter in baseball. It's not even close as far as pure power. Batting as of yesterday, and he's actually in DC as the Yankees take a visit to Nationals Park for the 26th through 28th. He is batting 414 in the second half. Remember, he got off to a slow start in March and April. He was hitting like 206 and had he had like 6 home runs, and he was just he was horrible the first month, and then has just taken off, had a historic May and hasn't looked back since. He's gonna unanimously win MVP. He you know the question is, could he challenge Barry Bonds' record? With the home run, he challenged Barry Bonds' home run record. That's I didn't think that was possible, but looking at what he's done, it's definitely on the table, for sure. And he, just seeing him put up these type of numbers again, he leads the majors in home runs, RBIs. He's second in batting average, and he's going to win his second MVP again. Having one of the great power hitting years that we've seen in a while, when you combine average with the power and still getting on base, ridiculously getting on base at a high clip. So he, without question, wins the week, topping 50 home runs and 300 in his career. Again, he's only 32, and not for a couple of injury plagued seasons, he'd be approaching 400, to be honest with you. So he without question wins the week. Couple of real thoughts before I let you go. It did not surprise me what happened with Florida State last week in regards to college football. Florida State double digit. First of all, everything was there for an upset. You're flying overseas, number one. You're breaking in a new quarterback. I know he played last year, but he's new for Florida State. You're replacing your quarterback that was a top 5 Heisman Trophy candidate, underdog Georgia Tech team, first game of the season. Everything it had the perfect makings of an upset. 10.5 point favorites in conference. So it did not least bit. It's still a bad loss for Florida State. They shouldn't lose to Georgia Tech. But it did not. I was not at the least bit surprised by that game. It just had all the makings for it to be a possible upset. Again, I think Florida State still has talent, but you replace a quarterback for the caliber that they replace. You don't like those guys. They're not at the level where they're just pumping out quarterbacks like that's. They don't pump out quarterbacks like Alabama used to. Like we once seen Clemson used to. There are certain schools that Ohio State wants like that. Florida State is not quite there where they can pump out great quarterbacks and replace Heisman winning quarterbacks like within 1 year. It's just not. They're building up to that point, but they're not there quite there yet. So that doesn't surprise me whatsoever. This week, you have 3 big games: Georgia, Clemson, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, and USC, LSU. So college football. Normally you only get one big one. You only get one major game when the opening weekend. So college football really is off. That's a great start to college football season to get 3 games of top 23. You get 6 of the top 23 teams in the country. We'll see. And Florida State actually has to play. I think they play Labor. I think either Labor Day night they play, or Sunday or Labor Day night. So they, have a quick turnaround to try to redeem themselves against Boston College. But that should be a fun weekend of college football with those 3 particular matchups. That Texas A&M Notre Dame matchup. I don't the Georgia Clemson matchup, I think Georgia is going to manhandle Clemson. I just think Georgia is going to be an angry team this year when they should have been in the playoffs last year. They return, their quarterback and a bunch of talent. I just think Georgia, to me, without question, is the team to beat in college football. So I see otherwise with where that program is at right now. They are, to me, just unquestionably the top program in college football right now. We'll see what happens with Ohio State and Ryan Day. Because but for all the games that he's won and all the playoff success as far as getting to the playoffs, two things have to happen. One of two things has to happen. He either has to win a national championship or beat Michigan. If neither one of those things happen, he needs to be gone. Because Ohio State is at a level to where they feel like they can bring anybody in and win a bunch of regular season games and get to the playoffs, especially now with the playoffs being expanded to 12 teams. Getting to the playoffs is not – that's the thing that's kind of being underreported, that, yes, the playoff expansion is great for fans, and it gives you, if you're a team, it gives you a better opportunity to get to the playoffs, but it does not mean as much getting to the playoffs with 12 teams as it did 4. So if you're a head coach, that's something you're talking to your agent. That's something you gotta keep in mind. That kind of you having a conversation with your agent. Your agent saying, "Hey, man, look, it's cute to get to a 12-man play, get to a 12-team playoff, but you gotta actually win. If you get to the playoffs, depending on if you're Ohio State, it doesn't matter if you get to the playoffs. That's not you have to win a championship or get to a national championship game. Like you can't get into the playoffs is not enough. So he either has to beat Michigan or win a national championship. If he doesn't do both, he's going to be gone. I'll make that prediction right now. Because, again, they believe that they have a program, they have a machine to where they can put any coach in there and they win, 11 to 12 regular season games and possibly and make to the playoffs. That's what that school believes. So, and with the resources and the history that they have, they're probably not that far off. So this is a major, big time. This is a make or break year for Ryan Day, to say the least. And Ohio State is ranked second coming in preseason behind Georgia. So it'll be a big year for them. He cannot lose to Michigan for a 4th straight year. They're 21? Yeah, you can't lose to Michigan 4 straight years. You just can't. You can't do it. Ohio, same thing with Michigan. You can't. That game is the most important. That is the biggest rivalry in college football. It's the most important regular season game in college football. When you start losing consecutive years to those two, either one of those teams, it becomes problematic if you're a head coach for either one of those programs. That's just the way it is, and it's the way it will always be. I'm going to end the program talking about the NBA. I saw this last Sunday, and it was funny. I got a cackle out of it, to say the least. So you have Anthony Edwards coming at the older generation, in particular the 90s, saying that in regards to skill, this is what Anthony Edwards says, if you didn't see it yourself. In regards to NBA, I didn't watch it back in the day, so I can't speak on it. Edwards, who was born in 2001, said, "They say it was tougher back then than it is now, but I don't think anybody had skill back then. Michael Jordan was the only one that really had skill." You know what I mean? So that's why when they saw Kobe Bryant, they were like, "Oh my God." But now everybody has skill. Magic Johnson responded basically saying, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically saying, "I'm not responding to anyone who hasn't won a championship," and basically tried to eviscerate Anthony Edwards, saying, has he even won? He didn't win a college championship. I don't think he even won a high school championship. So Magic took it very personally, to say the least. You had Isaiah chime in. Now Isaiah actually made some sense with what he said. In regards to Anthony Edwards and Magic Johnson, first I'll deal with Magic Johnson. If you are Magic Johnson, you are the greatest point guard of all time. You have 5 championships. You've made you are I think Magic is a billionaire or close to it. He's a billionaire close to it. Magic has, if you beat AIDS, okay, you are, Magic Johnson is one of the most respected people on earth from a sports and business standpoint. Like easily. Like it's not even close. One of the most respected and beloved. That combination of being respected and beloved and successful, Magic Johnson has all of those. This guy, like, it's Magic. Like, yo, you are Magic Johnson. It's just that simple. It is beneath you to even acknowledge this. Figure out responding. It's beneath you to even not only acknowledge this, to even think about this. Like if I would have saw that I was Magic Johnson, I would just like, huh, okay. If I would have even said that, like, why Magic? Why? Like, why? I just, when I saw Magic saying I don't respond, that is a response. When you say I don't respond to someone who hasn't won a championship, Magic, you actually just responded with that comment. You respond. That's a response. I have no idea why Magic would even entertain it. Zero. I mean, I have no idea. Magic Johnson. When people talk about skill, no one who isn't on drugs doesn't believe that Magic Johnson is not going to say Magic Johnson didn't have skill or isn't highly skilled. No one in their right mind that knows anything about basketball, that watch basketball, whatever you think that. Okay, so I think Magic was just. I don't know why this. I don't know why this triggered Magic Johnson to the level that it did. I really don't know why. I don't. Like I don't. It's confounding to me. As far as Anthony Edwards goes, like he's 23 years old. I can't take Anthony Edwards says a lot of shit at times. I love Anthony Edwards' game. He's exciting. He's great for the league. I can't take Anthony Edwards. You can't take anything Anthony Edwards says seriously when we're talking about the history of the game. He's 23. This guy, he was born in 2001. Okay, like he was born a year Allen Iverson took the Sixers to the finals. Like what are we talking about? You want to discuss history of the game with Anthony Edwards? Like we want to get hit. We are invested in Anthony Edwards' opinion of history of the game. Like maybe history of PlayStation 3. Like what are we talking about here? Like so it's this is the generational battles. This is where generational battles go wrong. And this is a part of generational battles I don't like because hopefully, right? First of all, everybody that's playing today's game doesn't have skill. First of all, let me take that back. Everybody that's ever played in the NBA, no matter what era they played, has skill. Okay, you don't make it to the NBA with no skill. You don't. Kwame Brown had skill. Anthony Bennett had skill. I don't care how bad a player you were in the NBA. I don't care if you played 1 minute in the NBA. Everybody that puts on a uniform, that was ever drafted, undrafted, that steps on that floor has skill. Period. I don't care what era it was. Like you would not make it. You would not make it to the NBA without skill. Okay. Like Bronny James, I whipped on Bronny James, saying he's not an NBA player. He has skill though. He does have skill. Doesn't have great skills, but he has skill. Everybody that plays basketball that makes it to the NBA has skill. It's just that simple. And you go back then when Magic was playing in the 80s, you had to have skill to play because you were not going to overwhelm anybody with off pure athleticism, number one. And number two, most of those guys either played 4 years or 3 years of college. So the fundamentals were there, the understanding of the game were there, and you have fundamentals and understanding, you have skill. with fundamentals, with understanding, with fundamentals in basketball IQ, and with great coaching, a lot of great coaches in college, that equals skill. It's just that simple. A high level of skill. So again, Anthony Edwards' comment was so insane. It's one of those things that you don't even respond to. You just like, if you want to talk about it on a show, a debate show, cool. But if you're Magic Johnson or you're any player that played in that era, it's like, okay. I wouldn't even acknowledge that. Unless somebody asked me, like, what you think about Anthony Edwards said, I would say that's just ridiculous and keep it moving. I wouldn't even give a detailed explanation on it. I would just say, that's just ridiculous. He's young. That's it. And keep it moving. But this really triggered Magic. I was surprised. And when I saw the response, I didn't even think that was Magic Johnson's response. I thought that was, you see a lot of these websites will say something that a player said and the player actually didn't say it. Because there were no direct quotes. Like, there were no direct, when I first saw it, I didn't see direct quotes. And then, Magic, when I saw Magic's name on it in direct quotes, I was like, oh, he actually did say this and he actually did believe this. I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked to hear Magic's response on this. Again, Magic Johnson is my favorite, either co-favorite greatest player of all time, my favorite player of all time, along with Kobe Bryant. Like I said, I'm disappointed from that standpoint that he even responded to this, because there was zero reason whatsoever for a response. That's going to wrap it up for this next edition of the Real Deal Podcast. Enjoy the rest of your week. I will see you next time. Take it easy.